BBC America's Killing Eve, Sandra Oh and Jodie Comer in conversation. As I'm sure you know, this deliciously propulsive thriller centers on the obsessive relationship between intelligence agent Eve Pilastri and master assassin Villanelle. It's about to start its fourth and final season. And although I'm very sad that it is coming to an end, I'm really happy to have these two actors here to discuss it. Hi.
Hi, Joy.
So, season 3 ended with your characters trying to walk away from each other. Can they stay apart?
Well, there is a season 4.
Yeah, not for long.
So there's your answer. But I feel like when we start the season 4, they have been apart for a while, and they are in very, very different places. And you can see how Villanelle has been dealing with that space apart, and you see obviously how Eve is trying to deal with that space apart from each other.
Can you talk a little bit about the women's relationship and where it stands going into season 4?
Yeah,
go on, sorry.
I mean, it's so complex, right? I think that's what we all love about it so much, is it feels so personal to each person who watches the show. You know, I feel like if you had a group of 5 in a room discussing it, each would have their own idea of what it was. You know, where we pick up with Villanelle, it's, you know, she's on this quest for change and to be good. And it's, you know, I feel like a huge question as to, like, who is she doing that for? You know, is she doing that for Eve, to get closer to Eve? Is she trying to prove to herself that she's able to do this?
Able to be good.
Yeah, but I feel like the lovely thing about working with Sandra on this show is, like, it's almost like with each season something new reveals itself. You know, we get so little time together on set, and then when we do, you know, we might come to a scene and be thinking, you know, what is the meaning of this, or what are we getting from the scene? And then as soon as we kind of sit down and the cameras are rolling and we kind of uncover it, it all tends to fall into place and make sense.
Like when you see them at the beginning, in some ways, Villanelle really wants to be seen by Eve. And Eve has worked really, really hard to turn her gaze away from Villanelle. But then there's a clash.
Yeah.
It's quite a clash. It's a clash. And then things shift, and eventually they're going to come back together again. And eventually it's going to have to do something with the 12 and Carolyn. Yeah.
They're busy. They're very busy.
Yes.
And I mean, as you said, you know, there's a real sense of Eve, you know, kind of wanting to change. The picture behind you has, I'm sorry, Villanelle wanting to change. Villanelle's in white, Eve's in black. And, you know, in some ways, Eve's transgressive impulses have been unleashed. Is there a sense that they're sort of swapping places at this point? Have they sort of inspired that in each other?
I wouldn't say swapping places. For me, there's always been a drive towards integrating the elements of Villanelle for Eve. So I'd say absolutely this season is, you see Eve at her most morally ambiguous, but there's a lot of self-determination around that. You know, like season 2, where basically Villanelle kind of forces Eve to kill Raymond. You know what I mean? Eve doesn't have necessarily control over that violence, but you see Eve at the very beginning in a much different place, with much more confidence and much more dominion over her choices. And some of those choices are violent.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I do think that, you know, there is this running question in the show of whether people can change. Do you think that these characters have changed over the course of the series?
I think they've absolutely, I mean, I could speak for Villanelle. I think she's evolved in many ways. I think she's grown in many ways. Whether that kind of core of her can change, I'm not entirely convinced. But you know, that, you know, she's grown so much through Eve. And I think there's definitely moments within this series where I think Villanelle finally has the ability and the maturity in a way to look at Eve and see how she's affected her life and what the consequences of that are, and feel something about that. Whereas I think previously something she's just shrugged off and not seen the severity of, you know. So yeah, absolutely.
How can I add to that? For the change, I'd say I really do feel like Villanelle has changed Eve's core. And the person you see at the top of season 4 is very different than the person that you saw at the very, very beginning of the show. I feel like definitely working. You know what, Jodie and I were just looking at an old picture of Eve and Villanelle from season 1, and it's like they're completely different
People,
characters. They're completely different characters, and in the way of like, oh, they have no idea what's coming. They have no idea what's coming, and you can just feel it in even Eve's gaze that she's much more innocent. She's much more trying. She's much more frightened even. And so I do feel like that Villanelle has really, being in relationship with Villanelle has really changed Eve's core. And I just really wanted to start the season with that type of change. You see how Eve's changed physically, not physically, but like you see her having gained skills, you know, and having gained skills with now a purpose. I think she's always been quite purposeful, but with a clear purpose.
Did the two of you know where these characters were going when you started? I mean, was that something that you talked about with, you know, Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the team there?
From the very beginning?
From the very beginning?
No.
No.
Hence television.
Yeah. And it moves very quickly, you know. There's often a lot, you know, we kind of get episodes as we're shooting them, you know. It is often kind of very last minute, and those conversations are having to happen whilst you're filming the episode, you know, before
Or during.
Yeah. And each new writer that comes in brings their own influence and their own ideas of what, you know, is kind of destined for these characters, which, you know, then opens up a lot of conversation where there's all about what it is that we want to get out of it, or what we feel right is for the characters. But no, we often go in
no idea. Yeah, absolutely no idea. Yeah. Right into the end, actually.
Yeah.
They like to keep you on your toes.
Yes.
Well,
that is TV. But I mean, the show is kind of unusual in that each season has had a different head writer, a different female head writer, starting with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. This season was Laura Neal. Does that sort of change the energy for you every season? Does it change the characters in any way?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Tremendously. You know what I mean? So, but with that, it creates dynamic. And in some ways, we have to go deeper into like, who is she? Who are we? Who are we? We really lean and depend on each other a lot to try and, because it's like, you know, again, you know, as Jodie was saying, it's like a new gust of wind that comes in, and we still need to stand true to what these characters are and kind of like move through the season with them. And it's a challenge for everyone.
Yeah, it's also the same with like when you get a new director, you know, we have a new director every block, so after every 2 episodes, and even that changes the energy. It's really interesting, you know. It usually takes a little week to
and different things that they see in the
prioritize.
characters.
Yeah.
Did you know much about your characters' backstories? Because I know that we've been learning little bits and pieces. And I mean, last season we met Villanelle's mom, which was very, you know, instructive. How much did you know? And again, it's like adapting to every new piece of information, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had worked on backstory in season 1, quite closely with Phoebe, because I was, this never read anything like it, and I didn't really know where to start, when looking at the material and how to build this woman. But obviously, as things transpired, when we kind of got to kind of uncovering Villanelle's family, what the writers had was its own thing. You know what I mean? And you just had to kind of surrender and kind of move with that. So it was different to what I'd planned, but I felt like so much time had passed then, and she'd become something else entirely, and it felt right that I was able to just, that felt truthful and it felt honest.
I did not have backstory. I didn't really work on that backstory. No. I'd say the only thing that I feel like I was happy to bring in was a cultural aspect in the top of season 3, working with Suzanne Heathcote, at the very beginning, after Eve was shot, she wanted to put her in almost a mundane place. And for me, I was like, Eve is shattered. And I wanted to put her in a place that might seem like she's ruined, but it's actually a place of healing for her. And so we put her in the back of a kitchen in a Korean restaurant. For me, subtly, I wanted to put in those aspects of like, what are the things that are healing her? It's the food, it's the language, it's here. It's very subtle, but that was pretty important to me, just to bring a breath of Eve's history and Eve's culture.
That was wonderfully sort of specific and surprising. I mean, I feel like, the more specific things are in the show, the more kind of real and I mean, sometimes strange they feel. Did you have things, knowing that this was the last season, did you go to the writer with any requests? Did you have anything that you hadn't done yet that you wanted to see your characters do?
There wasn't anything that I hadn't done that I wanted.
She's done everything.
But no, not that. But I was really craving a moment with Kim again, because Constantine and Villanelle's relationship was so beautiful and crazy and nuanced and awful and all those things. But I remember when I first met Kim, and I remember like the first take that we did, and we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, "Whoa, this is going to be fun," And I feel like, especially in season 1, he really kind of poked me and dared me to do things. If I was like, "Oh, I'm thinking this," he's like, "Go on, then do it." And he really kind of made me do that. And the way their stories had gone is kind of like this, and I was like, "Oh, I really want a reunion," but yeah.
So you put that forward.
I did that. Yeah. Please. Yeah.
It's such a physical show. I don't know how much you train before shooting, but it seems like you and I don't know how much of your stunts you do, but what are some of the sort of your favorites, your craziest scenes or stunts that you've done in the 4 seasons?
The bus.
Oh yeah, the bus.
For us, for me, I'd say it's a
great
bus.
one this season though, with the there's a really cool thing that happens.
Oh, sorry, can't tell you.
Oh, that's
sorry. Yes. Yeah, hopefully that works out.
I also remember like being in Tuscany the first week of filming and climbing a wall and just feeling like I was like fucking James Bond. I was like, wow. Yeah. Someone got a picture of me up this wall. It's like the coolest thing I've ever done in Tuscany. I was like, wow. And that was like the start of everything. But the bus was tricky.
The bus was great. The bus was tricky. We're shooting a fight on a moving bus.
To ultimately end up at that moment.
Yes.
With the kiss.
Yes. With that kiss, which for me felt so correct. Character-wise, because one, and also show-wise, it kind of came out of nowhere, and it came out of a deeply unconscious place, and it's the way that Eve would, no matter what, constantly be surprising Villanelle. So that was not only technically challenging, man, I screwed up my knee during but I think it was technically challenging, but I also felt like that entire scene was really correct and a strong kind of beginning for season 3.
Yeah, I mean, the physicality is really woven into the sort of character and the psychology of it. So, it feels completely of a piece with the show itself. But I can't imagine it must be hard on your bodies.
So it's, you know what, I think it seems more physical than it is, strangely. There's not an awful lot of it, but then when we do have a sequence, it usually is quite full on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, sure. I'd say for me, definitely this series, the last one, season 4, is absolutely the most physical for Eve, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot now that I'm thinking about. There's
the
a
end,
lot. Yeah,
the end is
yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
You just blacked it all out.
Yeah. Apparently.
I mean, there's also so much sort of tension between your characters, sexual tension, emotional tension. How much of that is sort of fleshed out, excuse the pun, fleshed out in the script, and how much of it do you just sort of experiment together?
I'd say the latter.
Yeah.
Very much the latter. I actually kind of think that when it has been put, it's never happened in the moments on the line. It's always in between the lines. And I think that's the power of it, the power of the dynamic, the pull has always been between the lines. And I feel like I've really trusted that. And I think that's the key to it.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, the chemistry's been there from, the first, episode. But I imagine, you've been working together now for 4 years. Can you talk a little bit about things that each other has done on the show that's really amazed you? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'll go
I
first.
think go.
I'll go first. I was like, I know this. I think for me, like watching Eve's journey, especially seeing, kind of what season 4 holds, it feels so huge and so true. And I know a lot of that is because of the kind of homework that Sandra does and understanding Eve, and she always comes to the table with so much thought and emotion that, like, you can see it in her work. I think the evolution of Eve throughout the 4 seasons is remarkable. When you watch a character and you see where they started from A, and where they get to, I think has been really outstanding. And I think people will really, really enjoy that this season.
Thanks, Annie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'd say for watching Jodie's work for the past 4 years, and also there's just the miraculous character of Villanelle, which is just one of the best characters ever. I'd say it's this type of ability, amorphous ability to transform a moment. And it's great to act with. My God, it's just great to act with. Do you remember the scene where, hold on a second.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so there's this one scene later on, we're not going to ruin it. And I don't think either of us were expecting that's what the scene, that's what the scene is. And I'm very much talking about what is not in the line, what's not necessarily in the action. But, Villanelle has this large action to do, and Eve is witnessing it. And then witnessing Villanelle and Jodie in this action, for me, just opened up what this entire scene was about. And I do feel like we do, and it's very enjoyable to play when you actually do have a chemistry with a fellow actor, and you just really love watching them. You love watching them. You know what I mean? And because the way that they are willing to be transformed or transform a moment transforms yourself as a character. and you can't, I don't think you can, many times that is written, you know, and that's what you're supposed to do intentionally as an actor. And sometimes it just appears. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the amazing things about these characters is that they are so passionate and untethered in a way that we don't see very often. And obviously you are tremendous actors, but I wonder how easy or hard it is to shed your characters at the end of a shooting day. Like, I don't know, it seems to me like they'd sort of seep into my dreams.
You don't know the half of it.
I found the key is a piping hot bath with
That's
Epsom
good.
salts.
Yeah, that's good.
Just something when you go home, like nice hot bath, just something to step away from it, you know, and wash it off. Or like I usually like some night shoots, I just like throw myself in the shower at like 3 a.m. Just like like just there's just something about doing that before you get in bed that is like a stepping away from, I think.
It's something like that is like really just kind of slowing down the psyche to say that, okay, we're going to shift from that whole day's work.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in your body. This is what we do. We do it with our entire body. It affects us. It's, you know, not many people, it's just from very much an actor's point of view. It's like, it's tough to shoot when you have, it's tough to shoot because you are trying to transform a character, right? You're you know, Villanelle is really trying hard to transform. And so it affects one's entire body. And so to let go of that is also really, really, it's really challenging, but doable.
Yeah, I think it's just like I've always underestimated it. It's not like you're troubled by it, but I think sometimes it can filter through, and you're not listening to something, you know, in your personal life, you're not kind of listening to someone, or you know, you're so kind of I don't know, you're just not very present.
Yes,
So I think it's just about doing little rituals for yourself. That is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably don't want Villanelle hanging out in your brain while you're trying to live your life.
No, she doesn't. She's all right. She behaves now and then.
What was it like filming those final episodes?
It was really tough. I mean, just like television moves very, very quickly. We were shooting obviously still in the pandemic. Just technically, it was really, really tough. I'd say probably emotionally, the way that Jodie and I were trying to, you know, really, really truthfully and authentically bring this to a close.
We just often look at each other sometimes, like maybe like look at each other and linger like a minute too long, and then maybe like, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't look at me, don't do it, and then we just like walk away from each other because you're like, there was so much, like we were on night shoots as well, and there was so much that we had to get done that it was like the moment you acknowledge that this is the end, like there's no, you know, there's no,
it takes you also, it takes you out of what your job is, which is like, well, you need to continue filming this until the very end. It's tricky, but it was hard, but it was also exciting. I remember there was this one moment, sorry, I can't talk about it, but there's this one moment at the very end when when there was a particular view that the entire crew came out, and it's just, sometimes you get those moments. It's so fantastic where it's really like, beautiful. This is exactly why we do film. This is exactly why we do, you get to have these experiences jointly while we're making something. So we did have a lot of those moments of just like, you know, it's obviously not just hard and doom and gloom. There's just the magic of filmmaking is so spectacular. It's a really, really special energy.
I mean, you have such an amazing cast. When I think about, I mean, even just the, you know, the veteran kind of women actors that you have in there. I mean, you know, Fiona Shaw and Harriet Walter. I mean, you've had Camille Cotin, you know, who we know from Call Me. And it seems like it's, you know, I wonder if it has a different vibe from other sets that you've been on. That's just like an amazing collection of talented women on there.
it's just hugely inspiring, you know, when you can look at other women and, you know, be such admirers of them, like as actresses, but also personally. Like these women are so brilliant and so funny and naughty and mischievous and welcoming and nurturing, and there's just something about being around that makes you want to be better and helps you grow. And I always pinch myself when I think about the people who we work with on this.
And it's also like that kind of feeling, right? We have women from all different decades. You know, that's what I've always liked about the show, that I've always wanted to try and keep about the show. It's all these women together, but at the experience of seeing women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all interacting and having their own, like their own full character. Really important to see, really important to be around, really important to play off of. That's been a great joy. That's been a great joy. But I got to tell you, personally, I've also been very, very lucky. I feel like I've had that experience throughout my career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been some talk of Killing Eve spin-offs. Are either of you in conversations about those? Or
Oh yeah. Tell us about it. Tell us about it. I feel like I read
They
that
got
somewhere.
rid of us
And
and
then
they
it's like-
shipped the new ones in. Just like that.
Like,
We thought we were so special.
I know. I'm so interested. Really.
Yeah. No, that's not.
I think you might know more than we do.
well, it may very well be wishful thinking on fans' part. But are there things that you will miss about sort of living in these characters' skins?
All the
A lot. I think a lot. You know,
the risk, I think. The risk I felt when playing her. Like trying to always toe that line of, you know, especially in season 4, there's a couple of, you know, like boundaries that we've pushed, and you know, daring to go somewhere, but always trying to make sure that it's truthful and is authentic to the, you know, to the show and to the character. I think I will, you know, that kind of constant push and pull is at times really daunting, but is also thrilling. I think I will really miss that. I feel like these characters really set a high bar.
Yeah. Soon as they do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then you're like, wow, okay, what's the new challenge I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Or, you know, where else do I want to grow?
For me, I feel it's like the dynamic between there's such a, I think for the both of the characters, a kind of like an unconscious beat, unconscious drive, and something that they don't yet know. I really like playing that, because you're really in this space of not knowing. On top of it is, I have to solve a mystery. I have to do this, right? But being able to play that while you're playing something mysterious within the character, you know, I feel like there's a, God, I don't know what. I always feel like a lot of my scenes, like big scenes, are happening with Martin. Right. So there's this one scene, I don't remember what episode, maybe it's two, maybe it's 2. Basically, Eve meets Martin, who's a psychologist, and she basically is talking to her about Villanelle. She thinks, but she's really talking to him about herself. And it's being able to play both of those things, that this character really thinks that she's talking about Villanelle, but the audience really knows that she's talking kind of about herself, and what your character can't see, playing both of those things.
Right. There are so many levels to the narrative, and you know, as you said, I mean, there is that element of the thriller and the detective story of, you know, the chasing the 12. Is that going to be a big part of season 4?
I think it's always been a part of the outer structure of the show. But I think the inner heartbeat has always been the relationship, obviously, between us. But yeah, absolutely.
The 12 haven't gone anywhere, put it that way.
Yeah.
They've gone nowhere.
Yeah.
They're still there.
They're still there.
And Jodie, you mentioned pushing boundaries. From the trailer. I mean, it looks like there's definitely a religious storyline.
Yes, there is. Yeah, there is. There's definitely like there's a new Villanelle at the start of the season. You know, she's, like I said, she's on this kind of quest to change or be good or be the person that everyone tells her she cannot be. You know, and that's further explored in episode 2. And there was something kind of structurally and cinematically that we played with, which is nothing we've ever done before. So yeah, I don't want to say too much, but it's really exciting trying to, she's, you're thinking she spent so much time in this church. How has it influenced her? What has influenced her? What has she taken away from it? So yeah.
So Villanelle likes a challenge, and being good is her new challenge.
Well, I think she's like, well, I'm good at everything else, and everyone's telling me I can't do this. Watch me do it, and then it's a lot harder than it seems. It's like the beautiful quote in the that you see in the trailer of, where Eve says to her, "Have you heard the fable of the scorpion and the frog?" That this sense of like, can you change your nature? And Villanelle is like really faced with that at the start of the season.
Ultimately, I think thematically that has been throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
Can you change your nature? Can you? And then Villanelle says, correctly, that Eve is assuming that it's Villanelle who's the scorpion, and then it's Eve who's the frog. And then Villanelle turns it around and says,
Maybe it's
maybe
you.
it's you.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to watch season 4 to find out.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Come on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us at this special 92Y Talks event with Sandra Oh and Jodie Comer. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you very much. Thank you.